My fault, as always. I forget to put us back in the picture, but we are back. Yes, do not adjust your podcast, even though we're giving you some technical difficulties right now. It is time once again for us to go to the outer limits. And today we are talking about episode 7. And that is O.B.I.T, O.B.I.T. And I forget what those letters stand for, but I'm sure one of you are savvy enough to do it. Look, there's Jeff Corey with his crazy 3D glasses.
Yeah.
Man. But here they are, ladies and gentlemen, our co-host for the evening. I'm John Siuntres. We've got our returning guest, Jeff Parker, who I'm hoping will be a regular fixture for these conversations. Yeah. Indeed. And you all know him. You all love him, the guy who hates doing this, but I made him do it when he said there should be an Outer Limits podcast. It's Gabe Hardman, everybody. Good to see you, Gabe.
Hello, John. Hello, everyone.
And again, we're in such a sweet spot.
Well, sorry.
Of course.
Hello, Jeff. Stop talking over me. Okay, there.
And we're in a sweet spot of the first season because O.B.I.T is another really interesting idea. And it's people with nothing to hide have nothing to fear from O.B.I.T, indeed. So, there we go. And Ed even has, thank you, Ed. He's got the translation. Outer Band Individualized Teletracer, the wave of the future.
Wow. Yeah, I think this is an odd episode in that there's like zero action in it. It is basically a courtroom drama and a sort of like a paranoid surveillance courtroom drama, and like, which I think is great and really the kind of thing that you wouldn't get in movies until like The Conversation, like 10 years later. But I think that the parallels to the Blacklist and stuff like that are, I think, pretty interesting. And going into, I don't know, recap the specifics of the plot, but there's a murder at an installation at a like defense defense department funded installation, and where weirdly and kind of interestingly to me, I don't think we ever find out exactly what they're doing there. Like no one ever even addresses it, and I think that which on one hand maybe that's bad storytelling, but to me, I don't know. I think that's kind of interesting that they would just leave that completely, like ambivalent what the point of what they're doing there is. But when a senator played by Peter Breck comes to investigate, everybody's all paranoid and worried, and there's and we introduce the idea of the O.B.I.T machine, and which is a sort of surveillance technology that can spy on anyone based on their bio, whatever, bullshit justification, but like it can only zero in on people, but not, you don't see where they are or who they're with if if they're if they're the only person who's being trained in on. But right off the top, we see that aliens are behind this. I mean, it's sort of a bizarre way to go into this story, which is not a mystery, right? Like, it's not a mystery that somehow aliens are behind this. The only question is, how does that end up impacting the people and who's involved exactly with the aliens or whatever. But we're basically told that at the top too, because Jeff Corey has big giant glasses and he has a patch of hair on his head.
Yeah, the worst.
That hair hand guy killed the guy at the beginning. So, I don't know. I mean, it seems like that would be a bad thing that it's not a mystery, but I kind of think it works.
But Gabe, what show is that exactly like? That we always bring up in relation.
I don't know.
It's the Columbo setup. You see the murder.
Oh, sure.
At the very beginning.
Of course.
And then instead of a really interesting Peter Falk-like guy, you get this young Kennedy-like senator who comes in and just keeps saying morale like it's a magic word that will justify anything he wants to do on that base. It's kind of fascinating. I was going back looking at it again, and I don't want to I know you're going to get into the director pretty soon or whatever, but it's interesting in that all it's got in it is this one room, pretty much. They do go to another location, but it's really fast. They've got the machine, the O.B.I.T itself, and those Roger Stone glasses that Jeff Corey wears. And that is the three elements of this show. There he is. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And it looks just like when Wally Wood had to draw a Martian. Like there was, I remember there was some old Mad joke or whatever. It's like, if you see someone who looks like this, the only difference was he had a goatee too, but it looked just like him. And it's like, this might be a Martian. And then the hairy hands. And he also had a kind of shuffle limp sort of walk.
Yes, that's right. He carried himself in a very odd way.
Yeah, Jeff, I'm going to ask you to show the alien if you can using your share screen, because sending me images on my phone is not easy. That's okay, buddy. You were trying to help, and I appreciate that. But I'm just saying, like, it would have been easier to just email me the images directly, because I can't transfer from my iPhone other than like going.
Oh, I thought you got the messages on the computer too.
No.
Hold on a second. Let me find where I.
No, it's all good, and I'm trying to email myself the image of the alien. That's a great alien.
It is. So that was it's another one that was sculpted by the guy Hua Chang, who was at Projects Unlimited, and he made a lot of the stuff for Star Trek as well. And he's one of those guys who never gets enough credit because he wasn't in the credits. But I think that the part where the alien head is kind of Cyclops, and which is, every time I watch it, I still just I sit there going, okay, so the actor's head is like what, slightly off to the side to make
it's jammed in sideways. They made it tab so that he could.
Pretty fucking brilliant, really.
Yes, it makes him that crazy looking,
and it's so simple.
Can you see the picture?
No, not right now. So if you're sharing, we can't see it. But can you email me the picture, and I'll eventually get it up there?
Yeah, okay.
John at Word, just as it says on my icon here, john@wordballoon.com. Anyone can email me, by the way, comments or thoughts on the show. And of course, you can chat here live with us. And I'm so glad a lot of people joining us for this episode live. That's terrific. I wanted to say what I like about the Senate hearing is it's interesting because I know that Rod Serling used to get really frustrated with a lot of live plays that he would try to do because the networks were like, hey, you got to tamp down the politics. And ultimately, you had a lot of empty platitudes of conflicting arguments that really weren't about anything. And in fact, I even watched the Missiles of October teleplay that was done in the 70s. And William Devane, it takes place during the 13 days when Cuba was, having missiles aimed at the United States from Russia. And they would cut to political speeches of Kennedy, and they were so empty with any actual point of view that at least this threat of surveillance is an issue and surprising, given that it is technically the McCarthy era is over by the early 60s. But as you guys likely know, the Un-American Activities Committee continued well through the 60s, and communism was absolutely still a very much, hot subject. And so I was impressed by the level of politics that they allowed in these Senate hearings and the issue of privacy.
And I believe Jeff Corey, the main guy who's our alien, didn't I read that he actually was a communist and was drummed out for a while?
Well, it wasn't really so much that he was a communist. I mean, he was part of that, theater world, group theater kind of thing, and he was,
communist.
Yeah. But look, I'm sorry to look back at the past with a degree of subtlety, Jeff,
and clarity. Exactly.
So he was part of that whole world, right? And and there were a lot of communists, and they put on communist plays, and then all that stuff. But then
Trotskys.
Yeah, but then when by the time of but this was the 30s, right? Like he was employed by during by the WPA when they were when they were still backing theater,
Right,
and,
a New Deal project, that a very democratic thing, absolutely.
Yeah, Works Progress Administration. Yeah, and so like the but that didn't even last that long, and he ended up coming out to LA and working as an actor for like 10 years, and was pretty well known. Then in like 50, I can't remember the years, but like when he early on in the HUAC thing, another actor gave him up. And so he then got on the gray list. But even though what the actor who squealed on him didn't, he was kind of making it up. He vaguely knew that Corey was a part of that stuff, and then kind of made up some incidents that he was involved in, which weren't apparently true. And then that just kind of put him on a gray list for 2 years. So he was sort of employable. Then 2 years later, HUAC called House Un-American Activities called him, and he refused to name names, and so that totally blocked. So then he was he couldn't work for a decade, almost a decade, like 9 years, from the early 50s to the early 60s. And so when all this happened, everybody else, lots of the other people who were blacklisted, they went to other countries. They tried to find work elsewhere. They did, writers wrote under pseudonyms, all that sort of stuff. And, initially he and his wife and, had a couple kids, and they were gonna, leave and go to England or something. And ultimately he was like, fuck this. Like, this is my country. I'm staying here. I'm not gonna, I'm not bowing to this. And so that's when he started an acting school, small acting school. And he ended up being this incredibly influential acting teacher. I mean, the people that, like, all of that stuff we talk about in the 70s, late 60s, 70s and stuff, all those actors, all those movies and everything, he had this huge part to play in all of that, which is not apparent from just watching the movies, because he was Jack Nicholson's teacher, and Robert Towne and Sally Kellerman and Roger Corman was the student.
Leonard Nimoy was also
Leonard Nimoy. Nimoy was really close to Jeff Corey, and when
that's how he got on.
Early 60s, when Corey started getting parts again, Nimoy would go and teach the class in his stead,
Yep.
So, like, it was, or at least until Star Trek happened, I think, and then he was too busy.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think but this Outer Limits episode from 63, this is one of the first things that he did, right, after Blacklist. One of the last things he did before the Blacklist was Superman Meets the Mole Men. The first George, I think it's the first.
Right.
It is the first. Yes.
Superman thing.
Yes, it's the very first. Yes.
Back and watched and reviewed for this, which I felt was important. Actually, I kind of enjoyed it. It was there's something very earnest and like kind of lefty about the whole thing. I mean, Superman, he wants to take everybody's guns away. He wants, like, he's
the first season in particular of The Adventures of Superman is actually a very good show for its age, for its era, and it became much more of a kiddie show as it progressed, and certainly into the color seasons. But I always say that the first season of The Adventures of Superman makes it look like Pulp Fiction compared to 66 Batman and even 70s Shazam and those shows.
Kirk Allen, right?
What's that?
Yeah, Gabe's talking about the Kirk Allen serial, right?
No. The first one with George Reeves. It's the
right. It's the pilot.
Like a pilot.
It is the pilot. I mean, it was released as a film, but it is the pilot for the TV series. It includes the origin and everything else. But yeah, I mean, it is. And I think it was made a year or at least 6 months before regular production of the television series began, because it's the youngest that George Reeves looks as Superman. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's pretty.
Yeah, but I believe so. Like, as far as the production thing goes, like, Jeff Corey was kind of graylisted at that point, and the producer of that Superman thing was like, "No, fuck it, I'm casting you. I don't care," And and then when you see the when you see the show, it's kind of like, well, it's kind of clear what their politics are in the Superman thing, right? Which I thought was pretty funny. But
no, agreed.
it is interesting though that this episode, Meyer Dolinsky wrote this one as well, and I believe he wrote
Architects of Fear.
Yes, exactly, Architects of Fear.
Okay.
And so and he said that this is very much about, it was intentionally, I mean, it's obvious, but it was intentionally a kind of, HUAC, blacklisty sort of,
Yeah.
And
there's our alien, everybody.
Yeah, one-eyed alien.
Yes.
And
that's what she calls it. Go on.
So I just think it's crazy that Corey is in this, and the first thing he's cast in after he comes back from it, and and it's this very deliberate comment on it all.
Absolutely, and also I like the ties to the Galaxy being the first episode, in that again we're using radio technology to open the door for aliens to enter our world and everything, and I kind of like that.
Yeah,
through line.
It's a weird comment on television, and about and even more so than the Galaxy being a kind of embracing the voyeurism of television. I mean, that thing is a television set, and
totally
to like
spy on people.
Yeah, to spy on people, and
absolutely
violate their civil liberties. And
yeah.
So I mean, but you're implicated a little bit. You are watching a TV that's watching this stuff. That's
absolutely. No, it's great that way, and it's amazing. And Jeff Corey, beyond this, as you say, I mean, and it was cool how these guys. Oh, that's funny here. Jacoro said that great unibrow on that alien. Absolutely,
he did have a serious unibrow.
But I was going to say about Jeff Corey, and again, his connection to Leonard Nimoy likely led to him guest starring on the third season of Star Trek in the Cloudminders.
Yeah.
An interesting episode there. And I've also a very class system, political episode of Star Trek. To, again, more of this paranoia in Babylon 5, where he is the physical representation of the shadows, the big bad of the first couple seasons, and has an incredible scene. One of the best scenes of Babylon 5 from a character standpoint, explaining the alien's point of view and trying to seduce Bruce Boxleitner, the captain, the Shepard, to understanding and accepting their argument. And it's very down to earth. And again, he appears in human form, and it's just no makeup, nothing. It's Jeff Corey just being Jeff Corey. And it's a tremendous performance. It's only that episode that he appeared in. He was great.
You need somebody like Jeff Corey to sell that Babylon 5 dialogue. So
no shit, man, for real. I mean, honestly, I am a big Babylon 5 fan. I won't deny it. But it really, I mean, that's the thing. Like, the show only got better once Bruce Boxleitner was there. And really, I think that third season, and that's where it happens, is an incredible season for Babylon 5. And it's like literally, I believe it is the last episode. It's either the I hate that word, penultimate. Everybody uses it incorrectly. Doesn't mean best of the best. It just means second to last. But it's either the penultimate or the season 3 finale of Babylon 5.
People use penultimate as best of the best. I've never heard this.
I've seen it a lot, especially whenever penultimate started to hit the culture. I saw a lot of people go, "Oh, it's the penultimate episode." It's like, that means second to last. That's all that means. That's
okay. Well, maybe I've just heard people use it incorrectly, and just since I have, I probably have less formal education than them, but I still know what penultimate means.
Well, it's kind of like, honestly, for grammar, if I may, for a tangent, when they allowed irregardless in the dictionary, I'm like, fuck you, you gave up. Yeah. What's wrong with you people? It's a double negative. Don't use it.
Fuck the dictionary. So
emphasis on dick. So yes. Anyway, but welcome to Grammar Pod. That'll be our fifth spinoff of this show, behind Bernard Herrmann and some of the other podcasts.
Here's William Sapphire back here, signing their number. Getting mad at you live kids with your bad usage.
I always love too in the credits that they give Harry Towns the guest star card, and I know that's likely just a kind of union or actor kind of maybe bonus that because he's a guest star, maybe you got a couple extra bucks.
It was kind of a deal.
Right. It may have been, in lieu of money,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, on an anthology show, they're all guest stars. You know what I mean?
That is true. That is true. But, technically, I think it's just about, the way that you could entice somebody into having a card that's pointed out more specifically than everybody else.
Sure.
But I think that his scenes as the doctor who seems to be crazy and has gone off into an institution.
Oh, this kills me because they keep saying he had a complete physical breakdown.
Right.
You mean a mental breakdown, but you keep saying physical. It was driving me nuts.
I don't know what that's about. I don't know if that's like if that was intentional to get, because the idea of a mental breakdown was so much more sort of outre and not something anybody would talk about at the time. I'm not really sure,
Yeah, you want him to use some term like he has dementia praecox or something like that, but they don't.
Yeah.
So we've sent him over here to just chill out, and you'll have to go interview him. And everyone keeps hooking up with his wife, including the alien.
Yeah. Well, I read the script for this one, but it was like it was pretty close to a final draft of it. The biggest differences were that his wife is clearly more intimate with the Jeff Corey character in the script. Like she calls him by a little nickname, and there's clearly more intimacy set up with them. And I imagine they pulled back on that, just feeling like, well, that's more of a reveal later in the, that's kind of the where we're going ultimately in the story, since it's more about the revelations of the interpersonal ship between these characters and, the way O.B.I.T impacts it. Than anything else. But the other big change was that scene at the sanitarium or whatever was a lot like, it was very brief in the script. It was kind of like he flew there, he showed up. There's no scene where the colonel guy is telling him, no, you can't go see him. And the scene itself was very much like him just walking in and going, hey, so I heard you saw some monsters. We need you to come back and testify. And the guy's like, okay, that was it. But I think that the scene that's in the show is like one of the best scenes in it, and it's very well acted and it's so moody and beautiful looking. Yeah. But wait, I just keep talking. It's
no, go.
So like Gerd Oswald, the guy who directed this one, yes, he ends up being the primary director for The Outer Limits, or at least he directed the most episodes, 14. And he was the guy who he came in and he got, Joseph Stefano, the producer, could see that this guy could handle stuff, right? Like this episode, it has no action. It has nothing really, like you have to be in there in one set with blank walls for this entire episode and still make it work, and I think that they did. Him and working together with Conrad Hall, clearly we're able to do these things that were just abstract. I mean, they're just big dots of light on the wall.
You know what it reminded me of?
Yeah.
I'm sure you saw at some point a billion years ago, Earth versus the Flying Saucers.
Yeah.
And it was a Harryhausen effects thing. But as I remember, and I could be remembering it wrong or remembering a different movie, but I feel like they also did a big metal room where people are trapped in a saucer and they have like an array of light. And all it is just some Klieg lights just making a pattern or whatever.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's even just one with a little thing over it, and but it for some reason fleshes it out, and it has that big German abstraction sort of thing happening there. So it's a great design, and in 1945, World War II was settled, but from that point on, Germans and the English kept battling over who would direct all of our American stuff. And clearly Gerd came in and won for a while here. You know.
Well, his dad had been a director in Germany.
Yeah.
And so like they, and then when fucking Hitler happened, they got out of there, eventually coming to the US. And Gerd Oswald came up through kind of, monogram movies like, Poverty Row stuff, but eventually becoming a director. But the first feature he did is this movie called A Kiss Before Dying that I watched this week. I do a lot of research, and which is actually like a really good movie. I thought it worked surprisingly well. It's Robert Wagner, RJ, stars in it, and it's based on an Ira Levin book. It's sort of suspense movie where he's just his girlfriend, played by Joanne Woodward, gets pregnant by him, and he goes about kind of like trying to get rid of her, ultimately just pushing her off the top of a tall building.
Yep.
And then the rest of it is, kind of him playing cat and mouse with the sister of the girl he killed, and Jeffrey Hunter, who is a sort of, I don't know, deputy college student police guy or something.
Yeah, it's like his campus murder.
Yeah,
it's great, and it's so great early. RJ, look, I hope you don't mind. I'm gonna have to kill you now. I love. I'm a big Robert Wagner. I love doing that voice.
Pushing somebody to their death ever comes up again for Robert Wagner.
What are the odds? What are the odds?
But like,
I thought we were going to like make it 5 or 6 episodes before Natalie Wood came up. This is awful.
Yeah.
Terrible.
So anyway, what I'm saying is that it's, while clearly the Conrad Hall has a lot to do with the kind of visual competence of this, this movie, he had Gerd Oswald was already a really confident visual filmmaker, 10 years before this almost. And and I thought that was pretty interesting. And I think that they, those two guys working together are who you need when you set like an entire episode in basically a blank room.
Sure. Meyer Dolinsky, the writer, also did the second season episodes, which I believe is the B episode. I'm guessing that's the B episode.
Isn't that a first season? Well,
maybe it is, but also other science fiction that he did, notably prior to Outer Limits, he did 2 episodes of science fiction theater from the 50s, and also, again, my favorite Ziv syndicated sci-fi show, Men into Space, which was 1959 and 1960, and he did 3 episodes of that. Post Outer Limits, he also worked on The Invaders and a couple episodes of that. He also did Mission Impossible. The Star Trek episode that he wrote was Plato's Stepchildren, which featured the first interracial kiss between Uhura and Kirk, and it was that Roman society that had telekinetic powers, and we get the awesome Spock solo on the lyre singing that fantastic song "Bitter Dregs," and Michael Dunn from Dr. Lovelace from Wild Wild West in that episode. So again, it is interesting. I always find it interesting what the directors and writers did before and after Outer Limits.
For the Dolinsky on this episode, apparently he was of the opinion that you didn't need the monsters, and that it could all just kind of stand on its own as this, the surveillance paranoia thing could stand on its own, and like to some degree, I get that, but I also kind of think that the monsters are a good thing. I think that it's that you kind of need it, and I think that it takes it a little bit beyond just being a straightforward paranoid thriller like that.
I agree. And they're just a good representation of the evil. I mean, it's just great subtext of, that it's more than just a bear, and especially in an episode like this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, no, man, that's cool. Hey, man, I mean, really, any other observations? Should we look at other cast members?
Well, I mean, one thing about Peter Breck, the the guy, your Senator, Kennedy, straightforward guy. He's actually the lead in Sam Fuller's Shot Corridor, and which is basically from around the same time. And that's a crazy fucking movie. And if anybody hasn't seen that, you really ought to seek it out. That's
Peter Breck there on the right.
Mm-hmm.
These hot senators, man, they come in, start bossing everybody around.
Although there's a wish fulfillment aspect of this, like politicians could actually get to the bottom of anything or make any
instead
sort
of being left out at the gate and they can't come in it happens now.
Yeah.
A fun prop note I saw that you probably also saw, that O.B.I.T itself, which, by the way, I thought it was a kind of neat thing putting the circular monitor. I felt like it was a little connection to the alien single eye.
Yeah.
It's like I like stuff like that. I like design thinking like that. But without the eye, without the monitor, it's Mr. Waverly's console from The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Right.
It's the one.
That's fantastic.
It's the one he's always sitting there and they're like open channel D and and doing their thing or whatever. And there's literally just turn on this light and this light. It's a good thing I know what these lights are, but it looks cool. And I thought that was fun. I love when good props, someone makes a good prop. I wonder if they think they're going to use that again.
Totally.
Well, or maybe it was rented.
Yeah, they probably think, oh, I can rent this again. This is something that it's worth putting the effort into this because I can rent to some other TV show.
Well, that's the case. Certainly, we know from all of Dr. Frankenstein's equipment, and literally it was the same equipment that was used 40 years later in Young Frankenstein, and Mel Brooks found the guy.
Yeah,
so
Strickfaden, the guy who made the Frankenstein stuff.
Yes,
yes,
and then also the six-figure episode, that the evolution and regression devolution machine, had to be a prop from some previous thing. No, or the use of.
Not the lever. The big. They made that an hour before they shot it, and they threw it in the dumpster afterwards. Or at least I hope so. Right?
Yeah, the big effect in this, besides having to keep matching film onto that little round monitor, is simply always opening the big double doors. It slide open Star Trek style.
Yeah.
And there's one guard who's just there to keep working that, and then the wife comes in and then someone else goes out, and it's that's really all you get to see most of the time.
You're killing me.
But look, even though Peter Breck, senator guy, is in a tough election, he's going to do what's right.
I like that they mentioned that. I don't know if you want to be doing this while you got that tough election.
Right.
And he's getting to the bottom of it. It is kind of funny, though, as he's asking them, and they're all talking about the O.B.I.T. They talk about the possibilities of it, but they never actually use it to spy on anybody outside of themselves. Yeah.
Well, they do say that there's a 500-mile radius that they can use it for, and that it's expanding. Apparently, in the earlier drafts of this, there were scenes at different places with O.B.I.T machines, and and they he went around investigating it to different places and stuff, and they just got rid of that because it was obviously for budget reasons, to make it more of a profit show.
I was looking up Joanne Gilbert, the wife's credits. Born in Chicago, but her she's got two big movies. Red Garters from 1954. That certainly does sound racy. The Great Man from 1956, which was, I want to make certain of this, Jose Ferrer, Dean Jager, Keenan Wynn. Pretty cool 50s movie. And then literally the next big credit for her is this Outer Limits episode. And she was a big anthology television regular. She did Zane Grey Theater. She did Studio One, episodes of Bronco and Perry Mason, Ben Casey. After Ben Casey, that's kind of where her career ended, only 3 years after doing this Outer Limits episodes. So I don't know if she was married to Edward L. Risen. And interesting, comedy writer and producer Danny Arnold, who certainly is known for creating Barney Miller.
Oh yeah,
and also was a big Nat Hiken writer on things like Sergeant Bilko and Car 54. Where Are You? So I guess that's where she went, probably after her career.
I'm glad we found Nat Hiken.
What's that?
I love Car 54. It's just one of my faves.
It's great.
Two incredible seasons, and that guy had such a great eye for weird character actors. And it's so funny because I even know there are Car 54 citizens that show up on Barney Miller 15 years later. And it's so fantastic. It's the same weird looking character actors. And I love Car 54. Good Lord. Jeff and I can do a Car 54 podcast. We'll spare it, Gabe, if he doesn't want to.
We can just knock it out real fast. We'll just
do you want to do it now? There's a traffic jam in Harlem that's backed up to Jackson Heights. So, there's a scout troop short a child, crew chef to it, Idlewild. Car 54, where are you?
Well done. Sponsored by Liquid Prowl.
Idlewild was a better name for that airport.
Than Kennedy, than JFK?
Yeah. That fucking selfish John.
I would like the airport to be named after me posthumously, if possible. So that would be great. No,
he doesn't need the airport too. Come on now.
Hey, you know what I discovered? Again, here's another television tangent. Sorry, kids. So Antenna TV, COVID has me up the craziest hours. That's why some of my podcasts are at 10 in the morning or at in my local time at midnight right now as we're broadcasting. But I'm watching a Joey Bishop rerun from the first season, and I had to look on Wikipedia. There's an episode of Joey Bishop's sitcom that was destroyed, speaking of Kennedy, where Vaughn Meter was the guest star, was doing his JFK. It was made right before the assassination, and because of the assassination,
that's right, yeah,
never aired and ultimately was destroyed. So it's even not one that they could have subsequently put on. And there's so little film archived of that I've ever seen of Vaughn Meter doing his JFK. And for people watching who don't know what the hell we're talking about, Vaughn Meter was a comedian. He released an album called The First Family. His great imitation was of Kennedy of the moment. Imagine the people doing Trump now or during the Reagan era Reagan. And then because of the tragic death, it killed his career.
Yeah, who was it who famously came up to him? Like they got the news at a club or something that night and said, well, your career's over.
Yeah, there's also the Lenny Bruce thing where it was a Carnegie Hall concert or something. He came in and the first thing he said was Vaughn Meter is fucked.
Yep. That's the line that I've heard. And I had always heard that it was him in a cab and a cab driver telling him, well, your career's fucked.
Yeah, I've heard that one too. Yeah. I'm sure that
hey, look who's joining us. It's Steve Lieber, who again knows about Vaughn Meter because of Lenny Bruce. Absolutely, man. So, and again, some Car 54 love officers, Tootie and Muldoon, the Odd Couple duo, and truly, Al Lewis. I mean, I loved Al Lewis's grandpa on The Munsters, but Al Lewis as Leo Schnauzer, married to Charlotte Ray.
Yeah,
they could have spun them off as a husband and wife because they were. And really, Charlotte Ray, Mrs. Garrett on Different Strokes and Facts of Life, is manic in Car 54 on a Jerry Lewis Hey Lady level of physical insanity with her face and just her. Honestly, was like after watching Car 54 after Facts of Life and Different Strokes, I'm like, Charlotte Ray is a comedic genius. I love her. She should get a lot more due in the comedy pantheon. There, I said it.
Controversial take. Yeah.
She's in You Don't Mess with the Zohan, the Adam Sandler movie where he's the Israeli killing machine. And she has a great scene with him, and she's funny as hell in that scene, man.
The weird thing about that movie, and I've only seen clips of it, it looks like it was supposed to be a movie about The one character, like probably, only people who read the same crap we did, Count Dante of the Dim Mak Black Dragon Fighting Society, whose ad is in every old 70s comic that you have.
I know you're talking about. Yeah, yeah.
But the thing was, Count Dante was a hairdresser at the Playboy Mansion.
Really?
That was his in Chicago.
Yeah.
The real one, Gabe. And so he did that, and then he got into, like everybody in the late 60s, he got into Kung Fu and started a dojo. And then he made this ad and kind of drew this, he was really just a Declan Shalvey looking guy. He was a kind of Irish guy. And, but on the ad, he kind of took a marker and he gave himself these big sideburns and an afro and everything, thinking this will look cooler for the time. And so anyway, it becomes a big thing. That song, everybody's Kung Fu fighting, about the dojo wars of Chicago.
Carl Douglas, go on.
John barely made it through them as a child. And,
There were funky Chinamen in funky Chinatown, no disrespect, but that was the lyric of the song.
I'm just going to say that I don't want to be associated with that comment.
All right, fair enough. And I apologize for anyone who might be offended by said comment. Who
wrote that song anyway? But
sounds like John Peters. That's hilarious. Yes,
it does. But there's other things where, like, he would claim to be this killer and everything, and then the weirdness that it kind of ends. I can't say that Sandler or whoever's in the movie actually took it from Count Dante, but it sure looks like it to me.
I understand. Stephen Ernest, to get us off of this terrible tangent, thinks that Charleroi was Witchy Poo. I don't believe so on HR Puff and stuff.
No, that was
that Billy Burke or whatever?
It's Phyllis Diller.
I'm going to look it up. I don't think it was Phyllis Diller either, but I'm going to look it up.
It's totally Phyllis Diller.
Because,
I
hope. Anyway,
I don't know. I'm just saying that.
Week is.
Well, now you got me curious, everybody. I do want to know who was in the HR Puff and stuff. Can't get a little if you can't get enough.
Have there come
there might be a Sid and Marty Croft podcast we can cross over with, and they'll fill us in on all this stuff.
Gilbert Gottfried, they were still alive, and and I don't know if they still are or not, but Gilbert Gottfried had them on his podcast.
Really?
Sid and Marty.
I've met those guys.
Have you?
I worked on a terrible movie, the Land of the Lost movie.
Oh yeah.
They came by the art department. I pitched them sequences and stuff, and they were just like, "Yeah, this is great. They're paying us. We don't care."
Yeah.
But they were, it was funny to meet them anyway. It was,
Did you ever hear the thing where they were talking about? I remember this. It's over 10 years ago. There was some idea they were going to do a Sid and Marty Croft club in the middle of LA somewhere, and it was just going to be all full of like stuff like Puff and Stuff and Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, and I said monsters because I'm thinking of Fred Gwynn, and all the Lidville, all of those shows. Like they were gonna, for some reason, it seems so hyper specific, dedicated to people who would not go to the club, but it never happened clearly, or I would have heard about it. There's no way. Did you ever find out who Witchy Poo was?
Yeah, I'm trying to bring up the photo of her. It's Billy. Sorry. What the hell's her name? Come on, where is it?
Give us a clue.
Billy Hayes is her name.
Yeah. Boy, I was way off.
I got to merge because it went to a different Chrome tab, so I got to put it on the Chrome tab that we're currently doing. There we go. Did I do it? No.
Okay, so since we spent talking about Fred Gwynn
and Billy Hayes,
The Outer Limits, when I was doing research for this, and you probably can't see it on here, I found this photo of Fred Gwynn and the monster from this very episode, and I have absolutely no idea why. I imagine they were just shooting on.
Do it again, Gabe. Throw it back up there for me, will you? Because I would love to see it again.
I'm sure that they were just shooting on adjacent sound stages or something.
Wow, crazy. That's fantastic. And at least that's more back to the subject at hand.
Look, I tied this fucking thing together. Now we're done.
Well, okay, then go ahead and answer me what that picture was that you have the still of with the bear from episode 3.
There's Billy Hayes, everybody.
Okay. I get it now.
She was also the genie in was it Lidsville? I know she played another, or maybe it was also. I don't know. I'm giving up. But anyway.
Oh man, this is giving me bad memories in my childhood. But
those shows were horrendous. Go on.
No, but anyway, the thing Cult turns into in Architect Sphere. What the hell is that picture from?
This one?
Hold on.
Yes, thank you. And it's got
where the Architects of Fear monster is is awkwardly standing there with Joseph Cotton, and it was like a promotional thing, and so like it was something guide where they're like where they're like, here are all the shows on ABC, and so it's
oh okay.
And
that makes sense. That makes sense.
To represent the Outer Limits, instead of having Joe Stefano stand up there or whatever, they put the Architects of Fear guy. But everybody in that photo just looks like, well, I've clearly made a huge mistake.
I was gonna say, man, don't you think the last 10 years of Joseph Cotton's life, he's like, God, man, I was like right next to Orson Welles.
God damn it.
Yeah, I mean, and amazing writer and director on his own, amazing lead actor and stuff. And he's doing this schlock, and he's doing Dr. Phibes at the end, and it's just like,
let's not. Yeah,
I love Dr. Phibes, but if I'm
Phibes slander here while I'm on the show.
If I'm Joe Conrad, I don't think I'm happy about being in Dr. Phibes. That's just my
man. Everybody should be proud to be in Dr. Phibes. Vincent Price wearing a mask about not wearing a Vincent Price mask, or it's kind of a weird thing, but
work is work, okay? Like I don't here to judge anybody in their
Luger's got a point here. Oh man.
Somebody tied this into extended Magnificent Amberson's continuity. Absolutely,
it should be doable.
I think that it's probably imminently doable, but I can't think of it right now.
That's funny. Seth Meyers supposedly developing a Munsters project. Every time they've tried to reboot the Munsters, it hasn't worked.
It's always terrible.
Oh, yeah, because there's just such innate quality in that idea. And
exactly.
Work every single time.
And again, that's why Al Lewis is a great Dracula as an old man, but Leo Schnauzer is so perfect for him. And just, oh my God, I'm telling you, like even the non-Schnauzer, the 2 episodes before they develop Schnauzer, and one of them, he's part of a car chop shop that steals cars and remakes them and stuff, or paints them so they look different. And he's funny as hell in that. Or he's an evil landlord. They're trying to like get this old lady out of a condemned building, and he's like, "Goodbye, Mrs. Salloway. I hope I never see you again, Mrs. Salloway." In that voice, "Drop dead, Mrs. Salloway." It's so funny.
I still am never going to be able to separate the old man Al Lewis from who I remember kind of seeing around New York when I first moved there, and he was also
in the restaurant.
Yeah, well, he would be. I can't remember if I saw him at maybe at the like in the East Village. There's this restaurant called the Kiev, and people used to go there all the time, like Wallace Shawn or the members of Anthrax, and like it. And so, like, I remember seeing a bunch of people like that. And I remember seeing Al Goldstein there. And
Screw Magazine, yes.
Screw Magazine had a fucking a public access show. And Al Lewis with, like, his crazy hair and wearing disturbing clothes. And he would be on the show all the time. I can't not think about that version of Al Lewis.
That version of Al Lewis did a great oral history interview for the Archive of American Television, the people behind the Emmys. Amazing website. I've talked about it a million times on Word Balloon. If you have any interest in this kind of nerd talk that we're doing, you will love these interviews. And also Gilbert Gottfried talked about how Al Goldstein would have these incredible Sunday brunches, and he would see Al Lewis, and of course Gilbert would go because it was free eats, and he would run into Al Lewis at those things as well. Billy West does a dead-on Al Lewis imitation that is so funny. And in the 90s, on our sports talk radio station, because I don't know if you guys knew, but Al Lewis was truly a basketball scout and a very good one. And we'd have him talk college and pro basketball, and he knew what he was talking about. And he was a fun, and it was great because he'd joke a little, but we're like, hey, Al, we really want you to talk about what you know about basketball. And he was great. He was fantastic. Knew his stuff.
He was also oddly tall, which you didn't get because he's always standing next to Fred Gwynn.
Yeah.
Kind of like the way Andy and Conan are, where it's like,
right.
Andy's like tall as us, and Conan's just so freakishly tall.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Okay. So anyway, next
we can be done. Yeah. What is next week's episode, Gabe? I didn't have a chance to look.
Next week is the human factor, I believe. It is kind of a lesser episode. I think it's one of the ones that they shot earlier and then held on to get some better ones in first. So the human factor is next week.
Fantastic. And I'm looking to see who starred in the human factor. Gary Merrill.
Very exciting stuff. Gary Merrill is in.
Well, Harry Gardino, a great character actor, and Joe DeSantis among our cast. So I look forward. Let me see as I'm scrolling down to see if there's any. Ivan Dixon of Vogan's Heroes.
Now we're talking.
Yeah,
sure. And a great Twilight Zone episode himself. Shirley O'Hara, John Newton, Jane Langley. I don't know these people. I'm trying to see. Wow. James B. Syking, pre-Hill Street Blues. And a young ingenue that we all know and love throughout her career, a young lady named Sally Kellerman, everybody.
Yes. Hey, that did.
Also a student of Jeff Corey.
Indeed.
There's a lot of connections.
Former paramour of Marlon Brando and I believe Elvis Presley as well. So. Yeah.
And I think also what's his name? Nixon's Secretary of State.
Kissinger.
Yeah.
Wow. Hilarious. Fantastic. All right. On that note, we return.
Think of Kissinger.
On that note, we return. Say it again, Jeffrey.
What wasn't that? That was a good little fake right there at the end. I wasn't expecting.
All right.
Is Janos Prohaska not in this episode?
Janos Prohaska was not in this, as far as I know. I don't believe
the
guy in the big area. Because this was there was no elaborate. He's always the movement guy. He's the ape. He's the guy who this is just schlepping in front of a TV monitor.
Okay,
we understand. It's now. Oh wait. Kellerman was in another Martin Landau Outer Limits. Yes, she is. That's coming up.
She's in Bellero Shield, which is another crazy one that I enjoy.
Indeed. All right, we now return control of your monitors and audio devices back to you. But remember to join us next week when once again we travel to the Outer Limits. Jeff, thanks for joining us. Gabe, as always, thank you for co-hosting. Great insight as always. Everybody stay safe. Stay